I've been given an hour. I have about 7 hours worth of content here, so I either can talk really fast or I can just kind of go through what we get through. So, as Doug said, I'm the creative director of Ocupop. I'm going to tell you everything about how we do our how we work. So you can steal it all. It's all stolen from other people anyway, so there's no new ideas. You just reappropriate, As far as preaching, I think our design is pretty unique. We're a really little agency. We have 3 offices, one here in Milwaukee, a small studio here. We have a very small studio in San Francisco. It's basically surfboard storage for me, and we have 1 person there, and we have a lot of clients in the Bay Area, all those tech clients, and so I'm out there quite a bit, so it affords me a place to work when I'm out there. And then we also have a studio in Honolulu, Hawaii, and I go there quite a bit, but not as much as I used to. So we have a lot of very specific rules about who we work with and the kinds of people we work with. We always work with, so what I was going to say is we're a very small agency, so what I'm going to talk about may not apply to bigger agencies. I don't know. I've only ever worked for Ocupop. I started this company in 2000 and been lucky enough to have it grow all along, and we just do good work for good people and keep getting business. We don't advertise. At this point, we turn away more work for the last 5-6 years than we take, which that's going to fall apart at any moment, I'm sure. But the way we work, we develop sort of evangelists. All of our clients become really powerful advocates for us, and so they refer us a lot of work. We're moving very much into the cause-based world. We'd like to turn the agency into only doing cause-based work. So a lot of our technology work is all open source driven. So all the work we do with Facebook and Google and Mozilla is all open source. And then we do a lot of work in the sustainability sector. So we have a lot of clients in that area. We still do other shit. We're the agency of record for the Staten Island Yankees. They're not doing anything to save the world, but it's pretty fun to work for a baseball team. So I wanted to take a quick step back and talk about where we started, how the company started. And I'll try to be quick, but I do believe in storytelling. It's the most effective way to make things stick. It's a great book if you haven't read it. Chip and Dan Heath, Made to Stick. I always recommend that to people. So stories. I was a zoology major in college. So if you have any rhinoceros or giraffe questions, I'm your fucking guy. So I was also a very competitive snowboarder, and my brother and I both wanted to be pro snowboarders, which translates to professional child. And so I got to do that for a few years, and we got paid to goof off. And it was kind of an interesting time where there was an inflection point in a couple different industries. Desktop publishing, the web was all very young. Snowboarding was young enough to have a dipshit like me be in a meeting and someone say, hey, yeah, we're going to have a website next year, and we're paying this guy $5,000 to do it. I said, fuck that, no, wait, whoa, I'll do it for $500. And like, you know how to do websites? I was like, yeah, I totally know how to do websites. And I went to the library and checked out a book on how to build websites, and that's how Ocupop started. I have that yellow legal sheet of paper with just ridiculous, stoned legalese on it, I will be paid $500 in 3 installments of, I don't know what 500 divided by 3 is, but, so that's how the company started. As I was doing that, the snowboarding, I wanted to get more into the design, and I really was passionate about actually industrial design and mechanical engineering. And so I have another degree that makes no sense. I have a master's degree in mechanical engineering. I went back to school, I thought I wanted to design cars. I love old German cars, old Italian cars. I don't have any of them, but I like looking at them. I have an old German car. I have a Volkswagen van, but it's not a sexy old car. It's very functional. And so I went back to grad school and really kept running the business all through grad school. Graduated, had about a 3-month career in product design, and decided I wanted to keep Ocupop going. And so that was 2003, and just haven't looked back since. But there was one neat thing about the engineering thing. It is so refreshing, and you guys are all designers. When you're building a fucking, I don't know, a bridge or a piece of medical equipment. When you're working in an engineering field and your, adorable, we'll call them, client says to you, no, we want to do it that way, and you have a differential equation that you can whip out and say, no, that will kill people. We're not doing that. It's a lot easier than the kind of subjective crap that we have to deal with as designers. And it taught me that justifying decisions is incredibly important. And having analytical, substantive, thought behind the decisions you're making as a designer is incredibly powerful, because it becomes something predicated on authority, not just on, oh, he can draw shit. And that's what I'm going to talk about today. So that comes a little bit from the engineering side of things. So this was our first paying identity client. We're pretty well known for doing identity work. This is a flower shop in Minneapolis. Kitty Costello, one of the greatest names. Her husband is Mario Costello, so Kitty and Mario Costello. And Michael Nieling, I got shortchanged on that when they handed out names. But so actually it's kind of neat. She now runs a handbag company, and we still do all of the work for free for her. 13 years later, that was our agreement: was you pay us now and you never pay us again if we succeed. And so she's been a client for 13 years, and she's fantastic. Lives in Portland now. But while we were designing this, Jeff, who's my co-founder of Ocupop, sent me this video, and you guys have probably all seen it. It's of Steve Jobs talking about Paul Rand, working with Paul Rand when he designed the logo for Next Computers. And if you just search for Steve Jobs, Next Computers, Paul Rand, you'll get the YouTube video. But in a nutshell, the video talked about how Paul Rand said to Steve Jobs, Steve was like, me and Steve, first name. Steve Jobs said, well, how does this work? How many options are you going to give me? It costs $100,000 to work with you. What am I going to get? And Paul Rand said, well, I'll design you a logo for $100,000. You will get one solution, and it will be, the solution I recommend. And Jeff said to me, wouldn't it be awesome if we could do that? And we were stupid enough I just said, well, why can't we? That sounds like a great idea. People don't, come to a car mechanic and say, why is my car not running? And the mechanic says, well, as an expert, I'm going to tell you that your alternator needs to be replaced. The client in that scenario doesn't say, fuck that, no, put air in the tires. He says, yes, please, Mr. Expert, fixed it. Same thing with a doctor. You don't go to a doctor and ask for 5 possible, diagnoses. You ask for, what's going to make me feel better. And so that's the way we approach this. But you can't do that without preaching what you practice, without justifying why you're making the decisions that you do. So that's been our philosophy. It served us really well. We had a couple early clients that were great. We did a lot of work with Burton Snowboards for a number of years because of my presence experience in the snowboard industry. We did a lot of work with the University of Wisconsin. My co-founder had a job there before he started with us. Puma saw some of the work we did and jumped on board as well. So a lot of, and then company you've never heard of, Garelic, but they're another one that they get billed 20% of the rate of our other clients because I made a commitment to them as well that will stick with you forever. And I never thought that we would bill as much as we bill now. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go through an identity design presentation that we gave to the W3C and all of the browser vendors for HTML5. So I trust you guys are all familiar with what HTML5 is. We designed the logo for HTML5. That was kind of cool, getting to design the logo for the internet. It was a pretty big deal. And it was very fun, but it was a big challenge. It came about with, we had done a lot of work with Google and with Mozilla, and there was a lot of these HTML5 evangelists out there that were really frustrated that the existing landscape didn't have any sort of brand. There was no sort of, there's nothing to touch as a touch tone to put along with blog posts or conferences or whatever else. There was this one sort of looked like and maybe some of you saw it looked kind of like a frozen block of urine in the shape of a 5. It might be in this next slide. Oh, yes, there it is. And that was the most pervasive. You did a Google image search, there'd be about 75% of the urine block, and then a bunch of other weird stuff. And so we got together and we decided, yeah, there needs to be a logo for this. And so we designed it, but it was very difficult because, as you guys know, most logo design is predicated around controlling the brand, right? You design a logo and you have a style guide, you have usage guidelines, you make sure no one screws the thing up. Well, this is a logo that was going to be released onto the world as an open source Creative Commons icon that anyone could do whatever they wanted with. And so we really had to, be careful how we designed it, because we wanted it to be able to look good in different colors. We wanted it to be able to look good at small sizes. I mean, all these things play a role with standard logo design as well. But usually you're fighting people to not screw with your work. And in this case, we really wanted people to adopt it and make it their own. So it was a unique challenge. So I'm going to go through this design presentation. This is how we present work. So like I said, I'm going to give you all the cliches, all the taglines, all the shit that we use to sell work, and use it as you will. I mean, I don't know, it seems to work for us. It's kind of like this hypnosis that you do. Because like I said, we don't slide a piece of paper across the table. And I'll just start. So I'll pretend you guys are clients. Just so you know, we do not provide options. We provide solutions. We don't care if you like these designs. We care if they work. It's eminently important that we do not predicate this conversation on taste. Most of what you'll see today is black and white because color is so polarizing. Your ex-wife had a purple car. You hate purple, so we're not going to bring that up. This will be all black and white. And we really want to show you the process that we went through to get to the solution that we're going to recommend. That being said, if we get to the end of this presentation and this solution doesn't feel right, we're going to have to discuss it. We're not saying that this is the only, solution that's possible. It's what we're recommending as the most powerful one in the process that we created. Now, sidebar, that may sound like it's easier, but it's actually a lot harder for us because we end up having to build an hour-long presentation. This is truncated, but and really make sure that we're making the decision. It's putting the pressure on us as opposed to putting pressure on the client. In the car mechanic example earlier, we're the expert, not the guy driving a car that doesn't start. We always start with kind of this intro page. I'm not going to spend a bunch of time on this, but you have to always leverage the lexicon of your day, right? You can't design in a vacuum. So we start with words, right? So we always have keywords. We generally distill the message down. And I oftentimes ask clients, try to summarize you. Try to summarize who you are, your ethnic background, your work history, your family history, your educational history. Try to summarize that in one word. And every client says that's impossible. Well, now try to summarize that in an icon that looks good in black and white, that looks good in full color, looks good at 16 pixels high, looks good on a billboard, looks good on a t-shirt, and most importantly, looks good as a sticker on a skateboard. Which is the truest test of a good logo design. And so we start with words, and then we move into images. And we all know what a concept board is, or a mood board, or whatever else. I always tell clients, this used to be a bulletin board in the corner of the studio, and it had newspaper clippings, and it was much more romantic. It's a shared drive on our Dropbox now that has a bunch of Google images in it, but it's the same principle. We're leveraging the visual vernacular around us. You can design something, you can design a logo that looks like nothing else, but then you've got to pour a bunch of money into it to make it mean something. So you always have to leverage some piece of visual vocabulary. Uncle Paul, as we call him, Paul Rand, was quoted as saying, we have Uncle Mill and Uncle Paul in our studio. Uncle Paul was quoted once as saying, a great logo has the pleasure of recognition and the promise of meaning. So that's where this comes from. You want to have that instant get. You want to have that pleasure of recognition, and that's where leveraging, existing iconography, existing images, existing meaning out in the world is really valuable. So we always show a slide with a ton of sketches on it, but we move past it very, very quickly. Because this isn't about ideas, this is about solutions. And people love looking at sketches. And so it's sad for them because they don't get to see the pages and pages of tracing paper and everything else. But it undermines our effort, which is to get to a point of presenting a solution. And so we show it because we have to, but we don't generally spend any time on it. So we oftentimes start with letter forms, as everyone does when they're thinking about logo design. And these are clever, though certainly wouldn't resolve well at favicon size, aren't very memorable, don't convey a lot of those keywords that we were talking about. I mean, we wanted this thing, this was at a time, this was 4 years ago, where HTML5 was not an established, it was not perceived as an established technology. It was locked and loaded and ready to be used, but people were afraid of it. People, is the video tag ever going to work? Like all this stuff was, is Flash going to go away? Is Apple going to support this? Like, I mean, there was a lot of things that were up in the air, and so the people involved in this, higher up in the web world, wanted something that gave it legitimacy and permanence, but didn't belie the exciting power and the sort of newness of it as well. So that being said, that logo doesn't look exciting or new. It also is just kind of shitty in general. So we don't ever show stinkers. Like we're not sandbagging people because that doesn't work. As you guys know, you show a crappy one and like at the end of the presentation, like, let's go back to that. And you're like, seriously? Like, Izzy drew that. That's my 5-year-old. Like, I mean, like, so. This was another one, again, iconic, but too cryptic, doesn't have that pleasure of recognition, certainly doesn't have that promise of meaning, certainly doesn't have that excitement, that verve that we're looking for. So, moving on, if we need a logo for a high five, Ocupop, we'll give it to you super cheap. But I mean, awesome icon, but it doesn't really convey the sort of power of HTML5. It looks like something that was designed in the 50s, which we all love and like think is awesome, and it would be a fantastic t-shirt, but like this doesn't convey the future of the web. So moving on, we really like the idea of a star, a 5-pointed star, HTML5. I mean, it makes sense. It's strong, it's exciting, it's stellar, it's something otherworldly. And so we also really like the idea that a sea star is what's called a keystone species. And so a keystone species is a species that holds an entire ecosystem together. So it's something that you don't really think about very often, that a sea star, but you hear about it in World Wildlife Fund and documentaries and things like that. One species disappears and all of a sudden shit just goes haywire. Sea star is that. And so HTML5 is this browser, is the specification for how websites are built. I mean, it is the language of the web. And so it is this keystone within the greater sort of web ecosystem. So, and sea stars are adorable. So we thought that would be, and at the time, a lot of like, what's the word for, not anthropomorphic, but animal-promorphic? Like a lot of logos were, on the web, were very animal-driven, and so we wanted to see if we could bring some of that personality in. But it was too cutesy, too esoteric, and just didn't embody the power and the sort of excitement of HTML5. Again, this is totally like a masturbatory designer thing here, like, oh, I can make fives, and I can make a star, and it has stripes, and it's awesome, and then it's like, but it doesn't mean anything to anyone, and so we really liked the shape, but it was just more of a cool graphic design exercise than a powerful logo. So then, and Phil Belair will appreciate this from our work as identity designers, we moved on to heraldry, so badges. Really liked the idea that it lended legitimacy. It was sort of like, it was not only a badge that says, hey, this stuff works, hey, this stuff is powerful, but it also lended that kind of or authority to it. I mean, it looks like something you stamp on something that says, this works, this is powerful. So we did a bunch of different badge designs. Why, unicorns. Has anyone seen a unicorn today? Because now you know where that came from. Oh, I don't know. I literally think I was just like, we need to have a unicorn. It would be awesome. And so I kept trying to shoehorn unicorn into the future of the internet, and it didn't work. We all have our weaknesses. Again, just a really cool design, but there isn't the excitement there. And so this is where we ended up. And I truncated a lot of the build-up. But you can see we've got a 5-sided badge. It has a lot of depth and dimension and sort of shape and form to it without being complex or overly stylized. Obviously, it's very instantly recognizable as a 5. It resolves incredibly well at tiny sizes. That little star actually was, I really fought for that, but ultimately it was just one of those things where you added it because you thought it looked cool, and then ultimately it was like, why did we add that little star? And so if you search the internet now, the urine block is completely, it's been set to pasture. And when this logo was announced, it was the most shared news story on Google for 3 days straight. So I mean, it's definitely taken hold. Within the first 24 hours, there were people that made it in SVG, people that actually made it in Flash, which was kind of ironic. There was T-shirts. There was all sorts. I mean, there was a guy in Japan that sent me a picture of a cake he made in the shape of HTML5, and he called me Mr. Nieling, which I was like, wow, that's some respect right there. All right, yeah, and then when I retweeted it, he got all excited, so it made me feel famous. So that's how we went through that process, and I guess I didn't keep in character as far as how we present to a client, but you guys kind of get the idea. It's very much about telling them the story, communicating to them the reasons we made the decisions we made, and then at the end, we always say, what do you think? And we do this little trick, and it's hilarious. I hope that none of this is being, Nick, cut this part out. But we always say, it's fun. You say, remember what I said at the beginning. This is a conversation not predicated on taste, right? So let's try not to use the word like. Don't use the word like. But we're really fucking good. And so 98% of the time, clients go, I think it really speaks to what we want. And then they're like, screw it, I like it. I really like it a lot. But I mean, sometimes they don't. And then what we do is we try to communicate with them. Why? Why is it doing what it's doing? And so that's why we came up with the name of this talk. Why? And that was what we were originally going to call it. This is my son, walking. He's adorable. When he gives you a kiss, he goes like this. And the other day, he literally goes to me, no, longer. So I think we might have, I talked about that to my therapist this morning. She assured me that everything is fine, but I still have a little bit of residue from that experience. But I'm sure you, maybe not all of you, but you might have seen the Louis C.K. bit where he kind of says that a little 2-year-old or 3-year-old can kind of deconstruct you to your most primal form by just saying why over and over and over again. And I'm not a stand-up comedian, so I will not try to impersonate him, but again, search for, I have some links at the end, you guys can check it out, it's hilarious. But there's also, I mean, that's rooted in real science. I mean, the Toyota production system, the Six Sigma stuff, is based on 5 whys. They say ask why 5 times to get to the bottom of a problem. And so, I mean, I saw one from Harvard Business Review, we do a lot of work with them, and they had a video recently where they were talking about software integration, and it was, I have the notes here, so I should use them. Why did the server go down? Well, because a new API was pushed. Why was a new API pushed? A new product feature required that API and got installed in the wrong way, or used in the wrong way. Why was that API used in the wrong way? Well, a new engineer who didn't know how to properly use it implemented the API. Well, why didn't he know how to use it? He wasn't trained properly. Well, why the hell wasn't he trained properly? HBR didn't say hell, but I can't help myself. His manager doesn't believe in training. And I mean, and that's the sort of stuff that happens all the time. And so we do that a lot with design work. Why did you choose that font? Chose it because it, I'm not going to go through. I can't extemporaneously map that out. But it's very, asking why over and over again is really valuable. And it makes you really focus in on, you don't talk about how design looks, you start talking about why it works. And when you start to get into that dynamic, clients especially, they're just mesmerized. Because most people don't understand that what we do isn't just making things pretty. We actually have a Google Doc that is things we do not say. And the word pretty is on that list. Or prettified. No, we don't do that. So a couple other ideas for the talk was, stop lying, start trying. This is just about justifying decisions. Clients don't really ask for stupid things. They just don't understand, and so you need to kind of communicate to them better. I really, truly do not want to keep yelling at you, but you need to stop trying to be such a fucking idiot. If there are any account executives here, they've uttered this many times. Probably to both sides of the conversation. But every client, we love to make fun of them. Like, what does every client say at some point? Yes, make the logo bigger. And it's uncanny. You could have the most enlightened, we have clients that are phenomenal. And they'll actually be embarrassed. They'll be like, I know I shouldn't say that, but can you just make the logo a little bit bigger? Like, no, negative space, you need it. My other favorite one, and we get this all the time, I can't read the font. Literally, so you can't read 13-point font. Really? You literally cannot read it? It is invisible to you? And then they'll get mad, and they'll be like, oh no, it seems really small. And it's like, well, because you added 7 paragraphs of copy and 7 images to the layout we already had designed. Fuck you! And then I call them and I'm polite. So I have a drafts folder in my email where I never respond to an email that I'm angry about the day that I get the email. I compose a response, and then I save it as a draft. There are 1,378 emails in that folder at this point. And we have never had a client that left us because, again, my therapist not only talks about the kissing for long, but we're dealing with the anger as well. Yeah. No, I've never accidentally sent one, no. I have sent emails to the wrong people plenty of times. And you always get that feeling where, oh, did I really just do that? I one time sent an email to a client and I basically said, this guy selling advertising at a magazine is only interested in making money. He is not looking out for your best interests. Like, screw him. And I sent it to him. It wasn't even like I accidentally copied another person on it. It only went to him. I was like, yeah.
Did you get a response?
I got a phone call very quickly after that, where I apologized. I had nothing to say. I was just like, I'm sorry, that was inappropriate, but you are really kind of a jerk. And he got fired like 3 weeks later, so it was fine. I felt justified in being an asshole. So preach what you practice is where we came from. The point of this is that the cliche is practice what you preach, right? And so it's about being hypocritical or avoiding being hypocritical. And that's not what designers are. Designers aren't hypocritical. I mean, they might be lazy or shy or elitist or whatever, but I mean, it's all about justifying your decisions. That's what we have to work hard on. That's what we have to communicate to people. And so that's why we flip this on its head. It's not about practicing what you preach. We all do that. We all adhere to all the tenets of good design, but we don't leverage the power of that evangelical ability that we all have to communicate why we do what we do. Because when designers get together and talk about the decisions that are being made, it's inspiring. But it's like this codependent relationship with clients where you just want to kind of not have them get angry. But a lot of the times, telling them they're wrong is the most important thing you can do. And that's what we do, and we've been incredibly successful. And like I said at the beginning of this talk, that may not work with giant agencies and giant companies. And my candor probably wouldn't fly if I weren't the boss. But I've been really lucky to have this agency evolve the way it is. And so that's kind of where we're at. Okay, so everyone promised me you'll go search for Simon Sinek, start with why. I could talk about all of his stuff, but he did a TED Talk on it, and he'd do a lot better job than I would. I'll touch on it very quickly. He has the golden circle. He talks about how everything should center on why. Most companies market themselves starting on the outside of this circle. They say, the example he gives is computer company. We make great computers. They're well designed. They're easy to use. Would you like to buy a computer? That's kind of the Gateway, Dell, whatever else. Simon Sinek uses the example of Apple. And he says instead of talking about from the outside going in, Apple focuses on the inside going out. So they know who they are. They know what drives them. They know what their passion is. And so instead of starting from the outside, they start from the inside with why. Why do they do what they do? We're Apple Computer. We believe in challenging the status quo. We believe in designing every product we make without compromise. We make computers. Would you like to buy one? It's the same shit, but you say it in a different way, and it is incredibly compelling. Well, would you like to buy a phone, or a DVR, or a laptop? I mean, Gateway, Dell, all those companies make all of those things, but no one trusts them because they're not starting with why, they're starting with what. And so this is what we work on. We oftentimes also tell clients, you think about the what, we'll think about the how, let's together figure out the why. And it's really fun to say to clients because like, wow, you're really deep. But it's true, right? Because what is simple. You know, when you're giving logo feedback, tell us what it's doing and why. We had a client, you know, it feels too feminine. We really need to target a more masculine audience. That's what and why. That's great. Don't say, let's make it black. Because that's how. That's the designer's job. That's why the magazine is called that. Is that magazine even still around? Okay. All right, so this is another stolen thing that I think you guys should all use. I have the link to the guy who originally I saw this at a brand new conference a couple years ago. But it's really cool. I mean, it makes total sense. And this is kind of starting from the inside out. You can have a successful organization, first and foremost, if you have great ideas and great leadership. If you wrap good people around that, you can have an even, you know, that's even better. If you can have well-designed and quality products around that, then you're set up for success. Only then can you wrap the crap we do around the outside of that, marketing and design. And it's phenomenal. We shouldn't call it crap. The inspired work that designers do every day. I mean, and oftentimes as a designer, and we're lucky, like I said, we only work on projects that we believe in at this point, but you often get, you know, something where you're trying to, I believe the term is polish a turd, or lipstick on a pig, or whatever the cliche is, and you can't wrap good design and great marketing around something that isn't good or bad people or bad, you know, leadership. And so oftentimes that's a great thing to come back to is, you know, hey, we might need to rethink the idea, or we might need to rethink how we're working through this as a product. And we often do that. So some of the stuff I'm going to show you quick is a couple ideas. Oh, this is just a fun thing. So when we did the HTML5 logo, I got to have the really fun experience of presenting that identity design presentation to Google and all of their lawyers, Mozilla and all of their lawyers, Opera, Safari, and Microsoft. And they were all phone conferences with a screen share, so I didn't get to see any of the people. And there's, you know, 10 lawyers plus a bunch of, you know, maybe not C-level, but one step below that at these major companies. And they were all kind of pissed off because W3C did this without talking to anyone. And I actually convinced the W3C, I was like, no. Don't tell them you're doing it, because they'll screw it all up. and I said, we will tell them 2 days before it launches, and we'll say, this is what we're doing, I hope you're okay with it. And that's what we did. And so these meetings were not fun, friendly meetings. But the funny thing was, is I'm such an egomaniac, and I'm a designer, and I'm so excited about this stuff. I'm making these presentations over the phone, and each one is like more crickets and dead air at the end of them than the next. And I kept coming back to the people that I was working with at W3C. I was like, that went horribly. And they're like, what did you fucking expect? For them to applaud? And I'm like, well, they do usually. And so, but they were like, they didn't say anything. That was awesome. We did some work with W3C on this validator suite. This was kind of a fun story. Dart is a programming language, open source, that Google has been developing over the last couple of years. They did these series of hackathons all over the world, and they called them Happy Hour, which I don't really know how that came together with Dart. It had beer involved, and so people tend to like that. But they really, really were adamant that they wanted the tagline to be, I hacked, from happy hour till last call. And we just were like, well, that seems really sad. You were just alone in the bar for 9 hours working on your computer? And they're like, no, it's I. We want, and so we really, like, this was just one of those things where we fought back. I mean, it's a simple change. It would have taken 5 seconds for someone in Illustrator to highlight that and change the we to an I. But we pushed back on it. And eventually they're like, you're right, that's horrible. Like, we should change that. And so those kinds of simple things. Another Google project, Grace Blevins, hiding over there, did all these illustrations. They kick ass. This was a conference. It was the first ever HTML5 game conference. It was at the Yerba Buena Center for the Arts in San Francisco, a really cool venue. They wanted to name it. We do this a lot. Companies will be like, this is the name of our company. We want to work with you. And we'll start working with you. That's not the name of your company anymore. And oftentimes they agree because we justify the decision. And so they wanted to call it the first annual Conference for Game Developers, for HTML5 game developers. I'm like, that sounds awesome. You're going to get a lot of people to come to that. And so we ultimately, Matt McVicker, who works for us, is a phenomenal developer and also an incredible writer and also an incredible everything. He makes us all feel like idiots every day. He came up with the name New Game, and it was just awesome because it's like, this is a whole new game. Like, building games on the web is a new game financially. It's a new game, from a technology standpoint, and it's a new game. It plays off the parlance of video games. Like, you die, new game. So, and then we wanted to play off of Galaga and Spy Hunter and Rampage and all the old video games. And so, I'm very old, and so I had to communicate to my younger designers, yeah, these were really cool video games before you were born. I'll find some pictures. It was awesome. Robotron 2084, the greatest video game. Anyone know what that video game is? Yes. I play it cross-handed because I like to move the guy with my right hand and shoot with the left. I have one at home. So t-shirts, we wrapped the building and the artwork that Grace created. So it was really a neat thing. Super successful event. I wanted to get, you can see up in the corner there, these are actually gobos. So these are all projection art. So those are like these really cool glass elements that they project through. And I told the guy at Yerba Buena, I'm like, I want that HTML5 gobo because it was super expensive and I'm sure it just got lost. And sure enough, it got lost, but I thought it'd be really cool to have as like a paperweight or something. Another idea, another one for Google, and then I'll probably close up here. No, I have one more story, and after this one, and this one's quick. This is another one. They wanted to call this App My Site. It was taking HTML5. Google had this incredible body of research on turning websites into web apps. So, and that's what's happening every day now. This was 2 years ago. And we're like, is Exhibit gonna host that? Like Pimp My Ride? Like, God, my late 90s hip hop references are falling on deaf ears here, I'm sorry. To App My Site, it just sounded silly. And so we actually, and they thought we were building App My Site. And so the first design presentation, we put this whole persona together. And we said, no, we're not gonna call it App My Site. We're actually going to call it Bert Appward's Field Guide to Web Applications. And we invented Bert Appward. And so these are all pictures of my uncle. We had like 50 pictures of my uncle from when he was a little kid till when he was grown up. And we made him into this persona. And they bought it hook, line. I mean, they were so stoked because like, oh, that's really neat. And the awesome thing was, when this launched, it had 1.4 million uniques in the first 2 days. So I mean, a lot of people all over the world saw it. People thought Bert Appward was a real person. We built a Twitter account for like a day, and like all these tweets would be like, Google releases Bert Appward, like, or Google employee Bert Appward releases his new web device, and it was really neat, and there was a lot of backlash because it was what's it called when something like Apple used to have everything was realistic, skeuomorphic. You just had to say, and I was like, that, skeuomorphic. So it was really neat because it was all built in HTML, and it was all real page turning with WebGL, all completely responsive, all HTML5, tons of animations. I believe it's still up. It probably has some stuff broken in it at this point, but it's, you know, if you just search for Appward's guide, I'm sure you can find it. And tons of incredibly powerful, great information in it. So this is that boat company I mentioned at the beginning of the talk. So we sent this to them. This was my opus as a designer, designing an ad for Broom, Brush, and Mop magazine. Yeah, you're jealous, I know. BBM, for short. These are telescoping poles. They come in 5 lengths, I believe. And I said that, I mean, it was like a one-off, like 20-minute design exercise, right? I mean, this obviously was not a ton of time was invested in this. So anyway, I sent this to them, and I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. Like, it's a decent headline. Like, it looks nice. It's got Euro style in it, which we used to do. Don't judge. It was okay in 2001. So immediately, I get an email back from the CEO. Change it to reach the sky. That makes more sense, because that's what they do. They help you reach the roof of your house or the roof of your garage. And I sent this email back to him, which again, like, it didn't really matter, but I was just like, that's stupid. So I said, be mindful. The best print advertising leverages the lexicon of the day to engage the audience via a relevant, universal, and efficient vocabulary. With this in mind, I'm sure you recognize touch the sky as a common phrase derived from nearly ubiquitous reach up and touch the sky statement used in countless songs, poems, motivational speeches, etc. On its own, touch the sky has also been used relatively extensively in the aforementioned media as well. Generally speaking, the original headline satisfies the criteria above. That is, it utilizes contemporary vernacular in an intelligent and communicative way to convey the towering presence of this product, both literally and figuratively, in 3 words. So it's efficient, too. Reach the Sky does much of the above as well, but it also leaves itself open for interpretation, which in light of the lexicon of today might be a problem. While this option is understandable truncation of reach up and touch the sky, and potentially conveys the same message described above, it also reads as a misworded version of the very common first line of most burglaries, reach for the sky, often followed by some expletive. In fact, reach for the sky line is so pervasive on cinema and TV, I would wager 8 out of 10 people would read reach the sky aloud as reach for the sky motherfucker without realizing it. Just another perspective for you. Please let me know what you think. Sincerely, Michael. That CEO has a framed picture of this with reach for the sky motherfucker on it in his office. So, well, that would be a nice place to end. I do, like, here's an outline. We used a couple Flickr images that we should give credit for. There's a Louis C.K. bit, the Simon Sinek TED Talk, and then yes, Chris Simmons was the guy I saw do that cylinder graphic, so I don't want to steal his work. Thank you guys again. Grab some posters, get some drinks. I wanted to drop the mic, but I can't do that.